Welcome to the Bracket Report, brought to you by Delphi Bracketology. I'm your host, Brian Tonsoni, and as usual, joining me today is our senior editors, Nikita Lear and Caden Gasser. Welcome to episode 4 of season 4, where we talk all things bracket. We ask that you join our work or follow our work on our website, delphibracketology.com. Today we put out a new seed list and a new bracket, which will change immediately after tonight's games, but it's there for you to look at nonetheless. And also follow us on Twitter at Delphi Brackets as we talk results and answer questions. There's good news for the state of Indiana for the most part. We're going to talk about 3 teams that are really moving up in our brackets or staying put in our brackets. First of all, the Purdue Boilermakers continue to play really, really good basketball. They get a key win at Wisconsin that solidifies their 1 seed. Nikita, do we see them falling at any point this year? I know they got to play the games, but what are your thoughts?
No, I don't see them falling at all. They've just been playing such good basketball. There's no way we can move them. The 2 losses, that's it.
I think they may get another loss or 2, but they're going to have a really bad run to fall off the 1 seed line. And Caden, your Badgers took a little fall to the Boilers. Your thoughts on Purdue basketball?
Purdue's actually working really well together right now, working on the inside and kicking it outside for the guys on the outside and Edie on the inside. Great win against Wisconsin, continuing on their 7-game win streak, and that's all I really got.
They are going to be a tough team to beat in a tournament, tough team for us to drop down. Let's talk a little Butler basketball. Butler has been on the outside quite a bit this year. Not only are they in the bracket, but they're moving up. We have them in the 9-10 seed range. Depending on that, they get a good road win. They have 2 really outstanding road wins. Quad 1 wins matter, but Quad 1 road wins, winning at Marquette and Creighton, really help the Bulldogs as they move up our seed line. Caden, Butler Bulldogs.
Yeah, they had a great win against Creighton, and I think they have a game against Connecticut around 8:30. That should be a good game for them. If they can win that, it'll boost them up.
Butler's just got to be concerned with not having a long losing streak. And in the Big East, you can run into some powerhouses. Tonight's going to be really tough. If they win tonight, look for them to even move up further. Your thoughts on Butler?
I agree. For me, Butler, they definitely would most likely need to move up if they win tonight. They're playing solid ball.
And we got media credentials for a couple Butler games, so I'm going to be able to go see Butler and Marquette and Butler and the Fighting Rick Pitino's later in the year. So we're excited about Butler basketball. And then my favorite, the Indiana State Sycamores, just continue to play. They beat Drake this weekend in a revenge game. They had lost to Drake earlier. They are sitting with a high net in the low 20s. They are a team that isn't going to have a lot of opportunities to get Quad 1 wins, so they're going to have to win a lot of games and win games to go. But we think Indiana State can get in that large bid even if they don't win their conference tournament. Nikita, the Sycamores.
Indiana State, they might be a small school, but they still are playing like a big school. They have with that 23 net and their road wins, 6 road wins. That's insane for a small school, in my opinion.
Good things on the resume, Caden, Indiana State Sycamores.
Yeah, just looking at Indiana State, you're looking at their record from now, like 10 games ago, they're 9-1. They've only lost 1 game since, and they're putting up good games. They're winning convincingly, about as low as a 5-point lead to a 12, 15-point lead. It's been pretty good.
The Sycamores have only 2 Quad 2 road wins or road games left. The rest are in Quad 3, so they do not have a lot of opportunities. They just need to not I think they can absorb maybe 1 more loss and maybe get an at-large. So the Indiana Hoosiers, we'll talk about them at some other time, but they are probably their bubble has probably burst. Let's talk 1 seeds. That's what we do. We rank brackets. We've already talked about Purdue being the overall number 1 seed, UConn being a solid number 2 overall seed, also a number 1 seed. We still have Houston, despite their loss to Kansas. Losing to Kansas on the road is not going to drop Houston's resume to a point where we need to lower them on our bracket. They're still number one overall in the net ranking. And then you get to North Carolina and Kansas, and we had some debate until last night. Kansas loses on the road to Kansas State, which will keep them down to number 2. But there's several teams, Caden, that we think can get into those last 2 spots. What do you see for the last number 1 seed?
I know we're going to talk about North Carolina and Kansas, but I want to talk about Tennessee. Tennessee's been putting on a great show recently. I know they lost to North Carolina and Kansas early in the season, but that's early in the season. They're going to show a lot of growth through that and prove to play better. They beat Wisconsin early in the season. They've also been beating other great teams, Alabama and Kentucky recently. I know they just lost to South Carolina, but that loss is right now a quad 2, but that loss can very easily move up to a quad 1 loss, which would help them a lot.
Tennessee's one of the 4 teams on our 2 seed line that we believe can move up eventually and get either the 3rd or 4th overall number 1. Nikita, in this competition for the last 2 spots, what do you see?
For me, honestly, I see North Carolina staying and Tennessee moving up. Tennessee with that great resume, as Caden was saying, and that one strength of schedule, meaning they play good teams, as well as North Carolina for me is looking better than Houston. Just the non-conference strength of schedule, theirs is better. Their overall resume is better.
For me, it's Kansas. I was looking at Kansas to compare them and almost was going to argue this morning at our meeting that they should be on the 1 seed line. They have beaten number 1 Houston, number 4 Connecticut, and number 6 Tennessee are their 3 best wins. I don't think too many teams other than Purdue and Connecticut have that type of very high-end wins. And so I do think they have a loss on the road at West Virginia that you have to think about, and a loss to UCF. So it's not a perfect resume, but when you get close, you look at the quality wins, the wins against the field, you'll hear us say. Kansas moved up from the 3 seed line to our top 2 seed line. Now you got to look at Tennessee and Arizona, and Marquette is the other 2 seed that could possibly find their way into that last number 1. So those are our number 1s and discussion about the competition. That's fun to watch because they're the top teams. A lot of good games this week. But stay with us here on the Bracket Report as we share some of our tough bracket decisions of the week.
The ISC Sports Network is your home for sports content across the Hoosier State. Find us live on TV and streaming or archived on our website and our app. The ISC is your one-stop shop for the content you want to see, including high school sports, college sports, and other great events throughout the year. Subscribe to our streaming service and get access to it all. ISC, local lives here.
Welcome back to the Bracket Report. I'm Brian Tonsoni. I'm here with Nikita Lear and Caden Gasser. In this segment, we're going to share a little bit about how we decide to move teams up and down. We had a meeting this morning with our entire club. We'll have a meeting as we're filming this with the rest of our club in school, led by Mr. Painter, another teacher, where they're going to be deciding some of these things. We have 4 decisions for you today that we talked about, and we're just going to give our opinions and some of the data that is behind those so you can see into our process. So decision 1, everyone, is our talk this morning. Dayton, Illinois, Creighton, 2 spots on the 4 seed line. One of those 3 teams has to be on the 5 seed line. Caden, we'll start with you. What are you looking at to make that decision on which of those 3 teams gets the 5 seed?
I'm looking at their road record, their complete schedule, looking at who they've beaten, who's beaten them, who are the people they're going against in the future, and to base all that knowledge off, I really kind of lean towards Illinois being that top of those 3. Illinois is, even with their quad 3 loss, is still a great team. They beat out a bunch of competition. This is probably really biased towards the Big Ten because these other teams, I don't know the other schedules and all that, but I really like Illinois, and coming behind them, I like Dayton and just how they're playing and keep winning games.
Illinois and Dayton is going to be a very good conversation. We actually flipped those today against Caden's wishes because some of the group thought that Dayton's resume was slightly better. The reason you would pick Dayton is they have no losses outside of Quad 3. But it's hard for a team like Dayton to have the quality wins against teams like Illinois, because Illinois plays bigger schools usually and has the opportunity to win. That is a real tight decision. Nikita, so Caden and I kind of like Dayton and Illinois at that spot over Creighton. Do you see it any differently?
I do not. I agree. I like Dayton and Illinois. I personally think Dayton should be over Illinois, despite Caden's decision. Their resume is slightly better, and they, like Mr. Tonsoni said, they do not have any losses outside of Quad 1.
The thing with Illinois that's hard, someone tweeted at us today and wondered why they were so low. I'm still not sure what's going to happen with Terrence Shannon, their best player. He's had some trouble off the court and has a court date. They could end up without him again later in the year. And so I'm hesitant to really move them up too much, but they're definitely on the 4th seed line. So that is something to watch. Creighton at the 5 seed line. Our second decision that we talked about today was Kentucky versus Florida Atlantic for the last 5 seed. And Nikita, we'll start with you. Where are you leaning on that? Is FAU a 5 or is Kentucky a 5?
For me, it's going to be FAU. Even though they do have that Quad 4 loss, I still think their resume is a little bit better. Both FAU and Kentucky are equal in road wins, however, which would be interesting to watch that play out throughout the rest of the season.
FAU, for me, has a better non-conference strength of schedule over Kentucky, a better overall record, a better net. The sad thing, I think, is the losses. So this is a real tough decision. Caden, where do you lean?
I know the losses really drag FAU down, but I'm still going to lean with FAU. You look at Kentucky, and they're going 2-4 in Quad 1. Well, I know it's not a big difference, but FAU's 3-1 in Quad 1. It's not a big difference in numbers, but at this point in time, they're not going to get a lot more games in Quad 1, so they need to keep with those wins is going to help them out.
FAU 6-2 in Quads 1 and 2. They have a Quad 3 and a Quad 4 loss. The one thing we need to be careful of is we're not just liking FAU because they made the Final Four last year. Every year is a new year. We moved FAU to the 5 spot over Kentucky at this morning. Mr. Gilbert, another one of our teachers, was pretty adamant in arguing for that. But it's real tight, and it's a decision that is tough because it is a smaller school versus a bigger school. Same problem we had with Dayton versus Illinois, and this isn't a decisive moment. We'll have this discussion with these types of teams going throughout the rest of the season. Moving on to question 3 or decision 3 that we had today, and I don't know that we got this one resolved at all, to be honest, is the last 8 seed, and that is between Michigan State and Butler. We have Michigan State as the 8 and Butler as the 9. Nikita, your thoughts about those two schools here somewhat locally?
So for me, I would prefer to leave it exactly how we have it, Michigan State over Butler. But, however, their resumes are both pretty similar, like almost exactly identical, except for Michigan State's net is better.
Caden, your thoughts on Butler, Michigan State for the last 8 seed line?
My Big Ten bias is going to show again. I believe Michigan State should be over them, even though they have a few less wins in the Quad 1 category. They both have the same kind of strategy or record. It's about losses in Quad 1. They're playing great teams, but they're not winning against great teams. Whoever wins these games is going to be put above each other.
I would normally lean Butler here, but their 48 net just sticks out to me right now. And the net is not an absolute, the higher team always goes. Michigan State's a 22 net, Butler's 48, which is offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. So the net ranking believes Michigan State is quite a bit better than Butler. But Butler is 6-7 in Quad 1 and 2. Michigan State is 4-8. Butler has one more Quad 1 win. The losses in Quad 1 doesn't really bother me. The only one road win for Michigan State sticks out where Butler has 3. And I said earlier when we were talking about the Bulldogs, Butler winning on the road at Marquette, Butler winning on the road at Creighton. But I totally understand our decision to leave Butler at the 9 because they were out. Then they were on the 11 line. Then they have moved up to the 9 seed line. And they are playing Connecticut tonight. So this decision this morning was to leave Michigan State where they were as the last 8 and Butler as the last 9. And so we move on now to decision number 4, which was the last 9 seed. And since we've talked, since I've done the script, we actually moved Virginia up into that spot so we can rearrange. But it was basically at one point this morning Nebraska or New Mexico. So we'll focus on that decision. Who's better on the resume, New Mexico or Nebraska? Starting with you, Nikita.
So for me, it's going to be New Mexico. Their resume is better. Their net's better. The only thing Nebraska has over New Mexico is their strength of schedule being 64, while New Mexico's is only 108.
Caden, your thoughts on these teams that are battling here on the 9 and 10 seed line?
I'm actually going to go against Nikita here. I think Nebraska should be a little heavier. They don't have any road wins. That's the bad part. But they beat two of the best teams in basketball right now, Purdue and Wisconsin. One of the best teams out there. They beat them both at home, obviously. And New Mexico, they have a good strength of schedule, but they've only played 2 ranked opponents. Nebraska's playing ranked opponents a lot in the Big Ten Conference.
This is another one where you have 2 different conferences. New Mexico's net is 18 and Nebraska's 52, but I tend to lean Nebraska too. Caden and I didn't win that argument. Nebraska was moved above, or New Mexico was moved above Nebraska this morning, and that's one of the beauties of our team. We had about 9 or 10 people together this morning. We have about 25 right now, and we're taping back at school. And there's a lot of opinions, and we try to replicate the fact that there are 10 or 12, I think it's now 12 members of the committee, and they all might see things just a little bit differently. But New Mexico with the 18 net will be a 9 seed for us right now. But I tend to agree with Caden that I think the wins that Nebraska has, Michigan State at home, Purdue at home, Wisconsin at home, those wins will definitely carry them. But I think the 9 or 10 seed range is there. The team that moved up in between those two since our meeting this morning was Virginia. And what happened was we had yesterday's set of data, and then we had the meeting at 7:20, and then at 8:30 the new net information came out, and Virginia last night won by 20-some points over Miami, a team on the bubble. So Virginia was an 11 seed for us. But their net was 43, 42. That moved up 10 spots. And Virginia's 18 and 5. So we moved them up between New Mexico and Nebraska as actually the last 9 seed since our decision. And that's how the information changes. It happens real quick.
Very quick.
Did you have something you wanted to add?
No. TCU also jumped up there above Nebraska. I think mostly because their road wins. They're playing great on the road. It's not like Nebraska where they're 1-6 on the road and can't compete on the road as well.
Yeah, and we are constantly looking at resumes, and sometimes games don't even have to be played, and resumes will change just because we take a different viewpoint of something, or someone brings up, hey, look at the road wins, and we'll have to look at those road wins in order, and we change our mind. Real quick, our last decision here, St. John's versus Colorado. For the last place in. Right now we have St. John's as the last team, and they're the last team, depending on who our automatic qualifiers are. We have Dayton as automatic qualifier in A10. Some brackets have Richmond as automatic qualifier. If you do that, then a St. John's would fall out automatically. But St. John's is our last team in, and Colorado is our first team out. Caden, any discussion there in comparing those two schools?
St. John's, when I'm comparing them head-to-head, I'm looking at who they played as ranked opponents, and it's an obvious scale that Colorado's only played really one really good ranked opponent, and while St. John's has played 5 ranked opponents, whether that be double playing the same team or anything else. They've all been losses for both of them, but you also got the overall record of St. John's, which is going to beat out Colorado.
Nikita, Colorado, St. John's.
So for me, I agree. I agree with St. John's. However, their net is 43 compared to Colorado's net at being 29. A 29 has not been out in years. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out, as well as a Gonzaga with a 26.
Nikita brings up a great thing. How much do you go with trends? We have past data all the way back to 2015, and we look at what committees have done in the past, but a trend is just a trend until it's no longer a trend. There has been no team in the 20s that has been left out. We have 2 out. We have Colorado, 29, and Gonzaga, 26. Combined between them, they have one quad one win. So their resume metrics don't work out, but their efficiency metrics do. So watch Colorado and Gonzaga pushing a team like St. John's for that last spot. We just wanted to share with you how we go back and forth. You saw some disagreement here on the panel, and we ultimately vote, and the team with the most votes gets the higher slot. And hopefully that helped you understand how we go about ranking our teams. But stay with us. After the break, we'll talk about that bubble.
Ball here. Harris scores. With 19 seconds left.
Fake players, big boy. I'm telling you right now, that's awesome. I love it.
That's the finish. You get a layup taken and an and one. Out of here.
Hey there, I'm Jake Query.
And I'm Derek Schultz.
Derek, do you know what we do not have in common with Ted Lasso?
What's that, Jake?
We made it beyond 3 seasons.
Oh, we're going to make it like 30, 40, 50 seasons. As long as your heart holds out, that is. Query and Schultz every Tuesday night. You can watch it right here on the ISC Sports Network, on our YouTube channel, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, X,
Isn't it
podcast,
X
whatever it is. Just call it whatever you
Twitter
want.
doesn't exist.
Just make sure Tuesday nights, Query and Schultz, 7:30, all season long right here on the ISC Sports Network.
We outlasted Twitter.
We did.
Welcome back to the Bracket Report. I'm Brian Tonsoni, Nikita Lear, Caden Gasser are joining me. It's now time to talk the bubble. The bubble are those last teams in that really need to win. And teams right above the bubble aren't really safe, but these are the teams most in jeopardy of maybe falling out at any point in our bracket. And then the bubble out are those teams that are outside but could always move their way in. Nikita, starting with you, we have Washington State, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Seton Hall, Texas A&M, Virginia, Cincinnati, Florida, and St. John's as our 9 last teams on the bubble in. Who you do want to talk about?
So today I'm going to cover Ole Miss. Ole Miss has been a team that's been very controversial, very back and forth. One day we have them higher, one day we have them out. It's definitely a harder decision. They have a 322 non-conference strength of schedule. For me, it's not very good, as well as they just only have 2 quality wins. They need to definitely keep playing good teams and keep winning.
Caden, who's your bubble in team that you're watching?
I'm looking at Florida. They're playing good, but the 1-7 in the quad one is going to hurt them a lot. There's a lot of teams that can go above them with just the looking at quad one, and the teams they're playing are good, but they need a win there to stay in.
We moved Virginia quite a bit a ways up this morning after we already had the script sent in. The team that is interesting to me is Cincinnati, 2-4 in quad one. A quad 3 loss, playing in the Big 12. A 30 net is good. Their strength of schedules are kind of all right or average. They need a couple big wins in that Big 12 to stay in the bracket. And then teams that we have out include Colorado, Gonzaga, Providence, Villanova. Kansas State moved up in our out category with a big win. But Miami, Florida, Wake Forest, Nevada, Oregon, Richmond, North Carolina State, Memphis, and as I mentioned, Kansas State in a variety of orders. Caden, coming back to you, which team that's out is really worth watching?
I think Gonzaga is worth watching just because their history is there of being in the tournament for multiple of years and not being out for a long time. They also get that 26 net, which can drop, and that will hurt them a lot. If that 26 net stays there, they will have a good chance of being in later in this year. They are 0-5 in quad one, and they don't. I don't think they have another chance to get a quad one game, which is going to hurt them a lot. But they only have one loss outside of quad one, which is very helpful to them.
Boy, they have a great non-conference strength of schedule. They just didn't beat anybody. That's going to be hard to leave them out if they're at 26.
Yeah.
So that's something we're really going to have to dive into. Nikita, which bubble out team are you looking at?
So I'm going to talk about Colorado again, about trends. I think this year is going to be a year that we're going to break the trend with 2 different teams. Colorado, they only have 1 solid win and that 1 road win. Like they need those road wins. They need those quad 1 wins to move them at all.
For me, it's Villanova. Villanova has 3 quad 1 wins and 3 quad 2 wins. They're just 12-10 overall. You got to get at least 4 games above 500, I believe, in order for the committee to actually place you in. But once Villanova does, if they can in the Big East, I think they'll find a spot maybe at the 10-11 line. So we have them as the 4th team out, but a team definitely to watch. And as always, everyone, there are games to watch all week. Tuesday night is a great night, so depending on when you see this, tune in for that. But Nikita, share with everyone a couple games that you will be watching this week.
So I definitely will be tuning into Baylor versus Kansas this Saturday at 6 p.m. airing on ESPN Network, and as well as Tennessee versus Texas A&M Saturday at 8 p.m. on ESPN. 2 close games, but I will definitely be watching basketball for those couple hours.
Baylor, Kansas, a 2-3 versus a 2 seed versus a 3 seed, and Texas A&M hanging on late down in our bracket. A big win for them at home against Tennessee. Caden, what games did you select?
Texas Tech and Baylor, going back to them. Texas Tech being a 7 seed and Baylor being a 5 seed. It's going to be a close game. That's at 9 o'clock on ESPN tonight. Then we got a rematch between Northwestern and Nebraska. Last time it was at Nebraska, and Nebraska won 75-69. This time it's at Northwestern, and it's at 9 o'clock on Big Ten Network.
Boy, that's a huge game because they're both around that 8, 9, 10 seed line, and Nebraska's already beaten that one. Head-to-head doesn't necessarily matter a whole lot. And then you pick Baylor. Baylor's got a tough week. It looks like they got Kansas and Texas Tech. If Baylor can win a couple, man, they might move higher than that 3 seed. For me, Alabama, Auburn, Wednesday night, 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Both of these teams are in the 3 seed, 4 seed range. Auburn desperately needs some quad 1 wins. This would be a huge one for them to get their 2nd quad 1 win. And then locally, Saturday, 2 o'clock, CBS, Illinois at Michigan State. Michigan State doesn't have a lot of those wins. They would pick up a really nice win at home against Illinois. And Illinois, as we were discussing, on that 4 or 5 seed line, some people have them as a 3. They went on the road. I think you're going to see us move Illinois up. So those are just a few of the great games that are on this week. But that'll do it for this episode of the Bracket Report. Please contact us on Twitter at Delphi Brackets and follow us on our website, delphibracketology.com, for all of your NCAA basketball coverage. I'm Brian Tonsoni for Nikita Lear and Caden Gasser. We hope your team wins and wins those road quad 1 wins. But more than anything, we thank you for watching.
3, 2, 1.
Has the first dunk in the building from Aaron Goya. Waits, Waddell finishes and lays it in.
There is right now the
Nice
play of the game.
move. Better finish. Good. We might see that on Blaze of the Week. Great feed. The finish. Spin, win, 3. Bury it in the lane. No, gun, yes.